Perception versus reality. When the facts collide with climate alarm. A new report by Robert Lyman. Hi, I'm Michelle Sterling for Friends of Science Society, and today I'd like to walk you through a quick overview of a new report by Robert Lyman, wherein he looks at the claims that climate activists are making about the reduction of fossil fuel use versus the reality, and he's comparing numbers from 2012 to 2022. So let's have a look and see what Robert has written up for us. Now, we can go back to a couple of weeks ago when CBC was interviewing Premier Danielle Smith of Alberta. And the host on CBC seemed to be astounded that Premier Smith rejected modeled studies on future demand and the price for oil and natural gas. And this is a perfect example of where climate ideology is conflicting with reality. So, as Robert writes, much of the rhetoric driving climate policy in Ottawa is based on the faulty claims of climate activists and ENGOs, that's environmental, non-governmental organizations like the big charities like Suzuki Foundation and such like. And proponents of renewables use demarketing strategies to demonize their major competitor, which is fossil fuels, oil, natural gas, and coal. And just to give you a bit of insight into what I mean by that, Big Green has funded these environmental groups for billions of dollars for decades to demonize oil, natural gas, and coal and push renewables. So you can see that even as far back as 2012, which is one of the years we'll be comparing in the consumption values in this presentation, that hundreds of thousands, in fact millions of dollars were being dumped into these various organizations. And you can see that the Climate Works Foundation has been spending about $600 million a year funding all these different groups. And again, they're promoting renewables, they're demarketing fossil fuels, they're pushing EVs. So you can see that there's quite a strong movement there. Now, that's not part of Robert's report. I just want to give you this background. And of course, climate catastrophe is the sole rationale for so-called clean energy, which is not clean or reliable, and which requires massive amounts of oil, natural gas, and coal for mining, manufacturing, shipping, installation, and backup operations of the renewables. So here we see some climate catastrophe headlines related to the release of the AR6 IPCC report, which came out in the summer of 2021. And of course, the headlines were all code red for humanity. Even Antonio Guterres got into that, code red for humanity. But in fact, Clintel reviewed the IPCC AR6 report, and they found that code red, that is not what the IPCC report said. So they sent a letter to Dr. Ho-Soon Lee, who is chair of the IPCC, and they were pretty upset about it. And they were saying, you know, the IPCC Working Group 1 report did not say these things, that there's a code red, that the alarm bells are deafening, the evidence is irrefutable. And yet the IPCC never corrected Guterres, nor did they challenge any of the inaccurate media coverage. So that means people are being scared to death over nothing. So this is the report that Robert Lyman summarized, and I'm just going to walk you through some of the key points. This is a report that was done by KPMG and Kearney, and Robert Lyman compares the facts concerning world energy trends as reported in the review versus the claims of climate campaigners. So the claim is that renewable energy sources are steadily replacing fossil fuels in the world's primary energy mix. So of 2022's total primary energy consumption, 82% was from fossil fuels. Nuclear energy was 10.7, renewables supplied 7.5, but most of those renewables are biofuels. So these are piles of cow manure that are piled up in it's in the Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region of China. This is what people use to get through the winter. And you can see here on this graph from that report that yes, indeed, renewables are growing and even growing quite rapidly, but the par between them and fossil fuel use is huge. And also they're not reliable, so they can't replace fossil fuels. The activists claim that the world is on the path to radical decarbonization, and in fact, that's not true. Asia-Pacific region continues to increase its share of total global emissions. China alone produced 30% of the world's GHG emissions, and 68% of global emissions were from non-OECD countries. That would be from developing nations. Canada, well, we contribute 1.5%. So the world is not decarbonizing. Activists claim that we are on a path to radical decarbonization, but in fact you can see in this graph that we're not, and in fact the non-OECD nations are consuming more and more energy all the time. Activists claim that financial institution constraints on investment are impairing the growth of world fossil fuel production. So here we have a story in The Guardian where Mark Carney was claiming that firms must justify investment in fossil fuels. Well, the big justification would be that it's a winner, it's a growth market, it's how the world is powered. So the world production of crude oil and condensate liquids increased by 81.2 million barrels per day in 2022, which is an increase of 5% over 2012. The world production of natural gas increased 22% over 2012. The world production of coal increased 8% over 2012. And in short, the production of all fossil fuels is increasing, despite efforts of climate campaigners to restrict producers' access to funds. The activists claim that measures to promote the use of electric vehicles, vehicle fuel efficiency, and increased transit use, as well as onerous taxation of motor fuels, are reducing consumption of oil, and especially gasoline, in the transport sector. Well, world liquids, such as crude oil and natural gas liquids, that consumption rose 11% over 2012. World consumption of gasoline increased 11% over 2012. In other words, passenger transport-related oil demand continues to rise across the world in spite of government policies. Activists also claim that natural gas consumption is being reduced through regulatory measures, and yet world consumption of natural gas increased 19% over 2012. And overall, natural gas continues to be one of the fastest growing sources of global energy demand and a key source of clean, reliable energy supply. And the activists claim that climate policies are driving coal out of the global energy mix. Well, you can see in some countries in the West that coal use has declined, but on a global basis, global consumption in 2022 was the highest level since 2014. So coal consumption still shows no signs of significant decline. And you can see in the Asia-Pacific area that coal is really driving the economy there. Activists claim that electricity generation is growing fast enough to soon meet most energy needs. Well, global electricity generation did increase 28% in 11 years over 2012, but the massive investment in wind and solar energy were not sufficient to keep up with demand growth, let alone displace any existing fossil fuel-based electricity generation. And Robert comments that most importantly, the world is not decarbonizing. It's not undergoing either a rapid transition toward full electrification or a replacement of fossil fuels by renewable energy. And you can see on this map, this is the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, the CO2 concentration just continues to go up. And we've had all these different climate conferences from Rio conference in 1992 up to lockdowns, and you see nothing but a growth in CO2 emissions. And so you can see that none of these climate agreements are doing anything to reduce any emissions. So this is the report that I just did a quick summary of. This is When the Facts Collide with Climate Alarm. You can find that online. And Robert, being so prolific, he also turned out another report, and I'll be doing a short overview of that as well, called A Cornucopia of Bad Ideas, Climate Finance for Loss and Damage in the Lead Up to COP28. Yet another climate conference is on its way. So what you can do is say no to climate CO2 coercion. We put this billboard out in about 2016, and at the time people probably thought we were being a bit extreme, but now people see that climate policies are really becoming quite tyrannical and making life difficult for everyone. And now people understand what we mean. Say no to climate CO2 coercion. First of all, CO2 is not the main driver of climate change. That's the sun. And then there are other earth processes related to ocean currents and geothermal activity, especially that under the sea. We've got a couple of very interesting reports on that, one by Professor Wis Yim, another one by Arthur Vitorito, and they're both on our blog. So have a look at those. And, you know, people are realizing that we're actually being pressed into some kind of climate tyranny. So if that's bothering you, if the rising price of energy is making life difficult for you, if the cost of food and housing is making you have a very difficult time in your life, well, I invite you to join us for our next production, our live show, which is Break Free from Climate Tyranny, Evidence over Ideology. Yes, we're pleased to announce that we're going to be having a live in-person event on October 17th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Red and White Club at McMahon Stadium in Calgary. Our guest speakers will be Robert Lyman. He's an energy economist, and his topic will be, when will climate policy hit the wall? Because there is going to be a breaking point where people will just say, that's it, no further. And also Dr. Ian Clark, Emeritus Professor, and he'll be giving us a reality check on climate and net zero. So I hope you can join us for this event. We offer a buffet dinner. There's free parking on site after 6 p.m. Very easy LRT access. It's a wonderful facility. The catering is excellent. And we're going to have a fun evening. So we have a cash bar. We usually start the event with the buffet, then we have the first speaker, we have a break. People can mingle and chat and visit our tables that offer some bling. And then we have our second speaker. So it's a full evening, but very enjoyable. And we really look forward to seeing our friends and supporters there. And, you know, we've had about 50% of the people come to our events prior to COVID who really had no particular professional interest in climate change or climate science or policy whatsoever. But even then, people were realizing, wait a minute, all these climate policies are actually infringing on my life. And they're not actually doing anything to stop climate change. They do seem to be making a lot of people rich off subsidies that I'm paying. So if that's crossing your mind, then you might want to join us and find out more. So break free from climate tyranny. We've got early bird ticket pricing right now to the end of July. And I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe and share our work. And we're going into our 21st year of operation, so if you'd like to send us a little birthday present, $21 would be just fine to contact@friendsofscience.org. That's for e-transfers, or you can go online and become a member or donate online. Thanks for watching. For Friends of Science Society, I'm Michelle Sterling.